StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to avoid traps. Yes, how to avoid traps. Now, what exactly is a trap? Let's get a definition for this term so everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. A trap is defined as a situation in which people lie in wait to make a surprise attack. Situation in which people lie in wait to make a surprise attack. So when I say traps here, we can extrapolate people to also places, things, ideas, beliefs, opportunities, etc. are lying in wait to make surprise attacks. And I'm using this as a metaphor, you will understand it. So in this instance, a trap means something that you get lured into because it seems fun, easy, and beneficial to you, but you ultimately end up paying a bigger price than what you are allegedly receiving in exchange from the thing that attracted you in the first place. In other words, you think of an animal trap. Any of you who's into hunting or gathering animals or whatever it is you do with the trap offers some free food to the animal that the animal didn't have to really hunt for. The animal goes after the free food, but in the end, their last laugh goes to the hunter who has now trapped the animal, who didn't realize that that food wasn't as free as it looked like. That's a trap. And human beings fall into traps all the time because you don't notice that it's a trap until it's too late and you already have been trapped. So today is about you understanding that you need to look twice and be cautious about what you decide to jump into just because it looks like a great proposition from the outside looking in. And if we had to boil this down to one word, this is really about discipline to stay away from traps. And I'm going to explain to you how to notice a trap before you go into it so that you don't realize it's a trap after you got caught. Because by the time you get caught, it might be too late. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is how to avoid traps. Number one, beware the free lunch. We've been talking about this. This point keeps coming up over and over and over again ever since I did the episode on the 3 key laws of economics, which is there is no such thing as a free lunch. This was episode number, I believe it was 3162, but let me check myself. 3261, episode 3261, the first 3 laws of economics. The third law is that there is no such thing as a free lunch, meaning anything that you get in life, there is somehow, some way, a cost to be paid for that thing. Whether it is paid by you, whether it is paid by somebody else, there is a cost. So anything that looks like you're getting something for nothing, be very cautious about grabbing at it because it is impossible to get something for nothing, okay? Which means anything you get, something has to be paid somehow, some way. And if whoever is offering it to you is not telling you the cost of what they're offering, you need to find out what that cost is. Just because they're not telling you does not mean that the cost does not exist. The cost does exist. They're just not telling you what it is. Maybe because if you knew what it was, you probably wouldn't take whatever they're offering, and they want you to take it so that they can get the cost, because the cost is usually more than what they're offering you. All right, that's the game. Not always is that exactly the case, but again, beware the free lunch. All right, everything costs something. Traps, ladies and gentlemen, are seductive for a reason because usually they look a lot. It looks like you're getting something without having to give up too much. That's the reason why traps are seductive. That's the reason why people fall into them. Traps lure you in with something that seems like some form of something for nothing or a lot for a little. If you don't want to call it something for nothing, it's a lot for a little. Always remember the third law of economics, which I just reiterated to you. There is no such thing as getting something for nothing. There is no such thing as getting a lot for a little unless some groundwork has been laid somewhere along the way to get you to this position. For example, I went to the gym today and worked out. Now, when I go to the gym, most of the people in the gyms that I go to, they don't know me. They just see me in the gym on a regular basis. Most of them think I'm an active professional athlete. Why is this? Because I look like a professional athlete, because I'm in the gym all the time. I'm in great shape and in better shape than most of the people around there, and in much better shape than most of the men in my age bracket. Most of them don't even know that I'm in the age bracket that I'm in. Now, when I go to the gym, it's not like I'm doing some life-ending workout. every single time I go to the gym. The workout is usually consistent, the stuff that I do every time I go to the gym now. The reason why I can walk out of the gym and look like a professional athlete or look like a pro athlete when I'm in the gym, even though the workout I did that day is not so, it may not be anything close to what I was doing when I actually was a professional athlete, is because of the groundwork of the years and years and years of going to the gym and working out that I've been doing, such that if you only see me on Wednesday working out, you're like, damn, this person must be a professional athlete. But what you don't know is the last 3 decades of me working out that you didn't see. So the last 3 decades makes today look like a whole lot for a little bit when it's actually been a whole lot for a whole lot. You understand? So always despise the free lunch, because there's no such thing as getting a whole lot for a little. And if it looks like someone's getting a whole lot for a little, it's just because they're only showing you certain parts and they're not telling you the rest. There's certain things they're not telling you. Always ask yourself if something appears to be too good to be true, because there is always something to pay. Again, whether you're paying now or you're paying later or someone else is paying other than you, there's always a payment. Free lunches are traps. Years ago, there was a movie. I don't remember the name of the movie, and it was with Ashton Kutcher. And there was a female actress. I believe it was Cameron Diaz was the female actress. I don't know. These white women all look the same to me. But Cameron Diaz, I believe, was the female actress. And Ashton Kutcher was the guy. And they were both in Vegas on separate trips. And Cameron was with her female friend. And Ashton Kutcher was with his male friend. And they're all out. They got together and they're partying in Vegas, whatever. Cameron Diaz and Ashton Kutcher get married in Vegas. You know how they have these shotgun weddings that happen in Vegas. So they got married in Vegas, and then the two of them are playing at like a casino game. And I believe it was Ashton who hit for like $1 million, a whole bunch of money. And then this is after they got married. They got married that night when they were drunk and stuff like that, or whatever it was. And Ashlyn says, I'm not sharing any of the money with you. This is my money, and we're not really married. And she said, well, we are technically married, so you got to share some of the money with me. He says no. She says yes. They end up going to court. And again, this is a movie. It's not even designed to make you think that it's real, but it's a slapstick humor movie. So they go to court, and I believe the judge, I remember the judge was Queen Latifah. She was playing the judge. And she says, okay, well, I'm freezing the money, and neither one of you can touch it until the two of you actually work on making this marriage work out. So then the rest of the movie is all about the two of them trying to make the marriage work out. And when they first have to make it work out, they're mad at each other. They hate each other. So they're each trying to get the other one to do the wrong thing so that they can get all the money and the other person gets none of the money. And in one of the scenes of the movie, Cameron Diaz, the woman, sends a bunch of scantily clad strippers to the home of her husband, Ashton Kutcher. And Ashton Kutcher calls his friend on the phone and says, hey, this happened. All these girls just showed up at my house. And his friend tells him, all right, that's a trap. You know that doesn't normally happen. And Ashton's like, no, this does happen. And his friend's like, no, it doesn't happen. And what his friend was telling Ashton, he didn't say this. He didn't say this, but what he was communicating to him is the same thing I'm communicating to you. And I'm giving you this example to help you understand. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a bunch of scantily clad women just showing up at your door, all interested in you because they just randomly found your house and now they just want to hang out and party with you. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. There is a cost to that if you are to partake. The cost to him would have been, based on the way that the slapstick humor movie would have went, that he would have been, I guess, in violation of the marriage and he would have lost his money. So he didn't fall for the trick because his friend was able to talk him off the ledge and say, dude, this is not a thing. All right. So this is what I mean when I say beware the free lunch. All right, anything that's offered to you a little bit too easily and with a little bit too little effort, there are strings attached. And again, don't be a fish in the ocean who sees an easy meal. You go reach for the easy meal and it's the fisherman who has the last laugh. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to beware and how to beware of and avoid traps. Number 2, think about your exit strategy before you enter. All right, my favorite book is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. He talks about this in his book, Plan All the Way to the End. And in another of my favorite books, also by Robert Greene, he talks about the exit strategy in 33 Strategies of War. He talks about this and he says, plan your exit strategy. You have to know how you're going to get out of something. It's one thing to get into a war, it's another thing to get out of the war. So how are you going to get out? You should know that before you get in. When I talk about time discipline and I talk about execution, I always make the point that everything that starts must also have an end time. I was actually just re-listening to a program, a course I invested in by this guy named Dan Kennedy, who you've heard me talk about if you've been listening for a while. And he talks about this, that everything has a start and an end time because First of all, it puts pressure on you to actually get shit done rather than just starting it and taking as long as you want. And we know Parkinson's law comes into effect. But also, he talks about the subconscious mind. When you tell your subconscious mind, I got an hour to get this done, your subconscious mind actually helps you get it done faster because it knows that you only have an hour. It's not just unlimited time. So everything has a start time. Everything has an end time. It puts pressure on you to get things done, gets the subconscious involved, and you have to fit within the parameters that have been set for you or for it. So if you were to take advantage of what's being presented to you, think about this, how this all fits. If someone's presenting you something that you want, that's tempting to you, how would you get yourself out of the situation if you get in? If you get in, how are you going to get yourself out? If it goes wrong, how easily could you leave? And you should know, if this goes wrong, how easily can I get out of this situation? If you don't have an answer to the question, you might not want to get into the situation in the first place. All right, don't jump in a pool if you don't know how to get out of the pool. Remember that many of the things that we do as human beings are done as a means to an end. But because most of us don't think about how we will actually reach the end, we end up continually doing something that was supposed to be a means, and we do it as if it was the actual goal itself, when it was only supposed to be a step towards the goal. So, for example, you may start a business because you want to make some money so you can free yourself up and you can spend some time with your kids and family. Speaking of kids, you hear my son scream in the background right now while I'm recording. So you start the business so you can free up your time so you can make some money and you can spend more time with your kids. But you get so caught up in the business, maybe the business is popping off, maybe it's not doing great, so you work harder and harder, whatever it is. You end up spending so much time in the business that you forget that the reason you started the business was to get out of the business so you can spend more time with your kids. Now all you're doing is spending time with the business and no time with your kids because you forgot what the means were and you forgot what the end was. So don't get so caught up in a thing that you forget why you got into it in the first place. And if you don't know why you're getting into something and you don't know how the hell you're going to get out of the thing, don't get into it. That's it. All right. So don't confuse means with ends and always think about, okay, for the end, what is the end of this? I'm going to do this until this. I'm going to do this until I've completed that. This is a part of a process that's going to help me achieve this outcome. What is it? You need to know the answer to this question. And a lot of people don't even think about this. This is how they end up getting trapped by jumping into something, not knowing how they're going to get out. There's an old fable of a couple of, I think the story was a couple of frogs. They were walking along and they saw what looked like some food down in the bottom of a well, looked like some food down there. And one frog said, let's jump down there and get the food. And the other frog said, well, if we jump down there, how are we going to get out? And the other frog who first suggested jumping out said, yeah, you're right. We probably shouldn't jump in there anyway. Even though we're going to miss out on that food, they decided to pass on the food so they didn't get stuck in the bottom of that well. Because if you can't figure out how you get out, then you probably shouldn't get in. And this is what happens in a lot of times in life when we don't plan all the way to the end. We only think about what we can get now, the instant gratification. We don't think about the long-term ramifications of that instant gratification. Again, remember, anything that comes easy, it's going to be hard at some point. And anything that's hard in the beginning is going to be easy probably later on. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to avoid traps. Number 3, ask yourself how much whomever is making the offer benefits versus how much you benefit. Again, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing if someone else's benefit is not exactly equal to yours. Usually not going to be equal. Depending on your circumstances and the amount of leverage you have, it's not always going to be equal. And I'll give you some examples in a moment. Are you getting into a fair deal or are you not? And understand, ladies and gentlemen, let me be very clear. Fair does not mean equal. Fair does not mean equal. Fair means, does it make sense logically to you to be in this situation and you get what you get and whomever you're dealing with is getting what they get? Does this make sense? Fair does not mean it needs to be 50-50 because everything in life ain't 50-50. Everybody ain't the same. Not everyone is equal. So there's no way fair can be equal. Understand, anytime someone's offering you something and is not asking for much up front from you, but they're offering a lot to you up front, there are hooks in that. Some will call strings involved in that deal. And that does not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It just means you need to know what those strings are. What are the strings to the deal? I'll give you an example that all of you can understand, even if you can't directly relate. When I first started monetizing my content on this website called YouTube, back in 2009, I didn't really have to do anything to start monetizing my videos because I was already putting videos on YouTube since 2005. And YouTube sent me an email and said, we can monetize all of your videos. Every video you put out will automatically be drawing revenue because we're going to run ads on your videos. And the more your videos get viewed, long story short, the more money you make. All you got to do is click this button and you'll be making money from videos. Whereas yesterday you weren't making any money. Now you're just going to start making money. See how that sounds like a whole bunch of something for nothing? They were offering me something for nothing. And I didn't have to do anything again except keep doing what I was already doing. And YouTube was going to do everything else in return and pay me money. So YouTube was going to do all this work and they were going to share money with me. They would get some, but I would get some as well. And again, my process didn't have to change at all. So I literally had to do nothing to start making money. Now that sounded a little bit too good to be true. That should be how it sounds to you. So what I did was I went and read the contract. So when you became a YouTube partner, there was a terms and conditions and agreement you had to accept. Anytime any of you signs up for anything online, there is a terms and conditions you are accepting, whether you know about it or not. I clicked on the button and I actually read the agreement to find out what exactly it was saying. And it made perfect sense though when I read the agreement. First of all, YouTube got a certain percentage of the revenue, which is fine. That doesn't mean YouTube's bad for getting a percentage of the revenue. After all, they are providing the platform. They're the ones going out and getting the advertisers, and they're the ones monitoring and managing the whole thing. They should make some money off it. I don't have a problem with them making money. The problem that I had was twofold. Number one, there was no negotiation as to how much they got. They just said, this is how much we're getting and this is how much you're getting. This was not a, what do you think? This is not a negotiation. It was, this is what it is, yes or no. It was a binary, number one, that told me that they realized or they believed that they had a lot more leverage than a creator like myself or anyone else had in this situation. That was number one. And number two, I realized that YouTube had control over the platform. Now, YouTube does not own the content. These days, you'll hear creators and podcasters and things saying things like, well, we own all of our IP. We own all of our intellectual property. Generally doesn't mean anything if you have nowhere to use or anywhere to house your intellectual property. So when you hear people talking about owning all of their IP, these are people who don't really know that much about business. They sound stupid because it doesn't really mean anything if you own every video you ever put on YouTube and you have nowhere other than YouTube to put it. What are you going to do with it? There's nowhere else to put it. So who cares if you own it? You own a whole bunch of worthless shit if you have nowhere to market and monetize it. But anyway, so YouTube owned the platform of YouTube. Let me ask you all a question. If you couldn't put your videos on YouTube, where would you put them? Now, technically, you could chop them up and put them on shorter form platforms like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. You could go to another platform like Rumble, but these are not nearly as popular as YouTube. So why would you do that? The answer is you shouldn't do that. YouTube owns the platform, which means what? They have a monopoly on people watching videos. And long story short, that's pretty much what they got. They got a monopoly. People watching videos, they have a monopoly on this. This is not even, just think about it, it's not even disputable. And because they have that monopoly, that's how they can dictate the terms of the pay split to you, their percentage versus your percentage. And if you ever want to leave, where are you going to go? Now, they have no competitors. So I realized, okay, this is the reason why they're able to offer me so much for so little. Because they're getting, in the long term, they're getting all the benefits. In the short term, yeah, it's cool for you, great for you. You went from making no money to making some money. That's something. But in the long term, they're getting all the benefits because they control you and they basically own you because the only way you keep making money on YouTube is by following their rules. And over the years, they just instituted more rules, more algorithms, and more competition. And who are you? You're the person who has to run faster and faster on the treadmill to keep making money. Beautiful hustle by YouTube. Absolutely beautiful. I wish I came up with it myself. And when I say these type of things, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm dead serious. This is a beautiful hustle. I just told you exactly what the game is. That's exactly what they did. And it worked. I mean, YouTube is YouTube. This is 2009, folks. What year are you listening to this? That worked. And they were able to get that type of deal out of not just me. It's not like they were just talking to me. They got this with millions of people making videos. How many people make videos on YouTube every day? Millions. That makes them a ton of money. And everyone who is making all their money from YouTube, or your entire brand or your reach is all based on your YouTube videos, you are a slave to YouTube because you got to keep giving them content in order for you to remain relevant and remain accessible to your audience. And you have no alternatives. Again, it doesn't mean it's a bad deal. It doesn't mean YouTube's bad for doing what they did. It's just a matter of, are you okay with it? Yes or no? Are you good with this deal or not? And again, our ego and our greed usually tell us to ignore these logical questions. So I'm giving you a very logical question, but when your ego and greed are involved, you don't think about these things. If you can be disciplined enough to not ignore it, the shenanigans can be obvious to you from the beginning. Now, even though, let me go back a little bit in my story. I told you, I read the agreement for YouTube. I read the contract and it told me This is the split. This is how it works. And I realized all of these things that I'm explaining to you right now. And I said to myself, well, two things I said to myself. Number one, I'm still going to sign it. All right, first of all. So it's not like I said, I'm not going to take this. Not like I said, YouTube's trapping me. I said, I'm still going to sign it because I want to make the money off here. There is no alternative to YouTube. I thought maybe at some point there would be an alternative to YouTube. It's been 16 years. There ain't one. There's no alternative to YouTube when it comes to that type of video and that type of platform. There is no other option. And the other thing I said to myself is, okay, now that I know that this is how they're doing things and I could see this, I said, I'm never, ever, ever going to make YouTube the main thing in my business. And I'm not going to make any social media platform because YouTube was the first. I think YouTube was the biggest one first after Facebook, but I wasn't even on Facebook because at that time I wasn't in college. So I think I was on Facebook, but if Facebook first started, you had to have a college email address and then they opened it up. And I said, I'm never going to make a social media platform my main access point for my audience because they can pull the rug out from under you if you piss them off. And reading the YouTube contract told me that other platforms are going to do the same thing YouTube does. And they all do it. In case any of you didn't know, they all do this. I'm just using YouTube as an example here, but every single one of them is doing the exact same thing. They hook you in, they get you in by giving you a whole bunch of stuff for free, for a whole bunch of something for nothing. And then when you are completely tethered to them and you can't do what you do without them, now they just increase the restrictions on you. That's it. And they just squeeze everything out of you until everything you got to go to them. That's the business. And to get out of it takes a whole lot more effort than it would have been to stay out of it in the beginning, if you knew what you knew. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to diversify. I'm going to use YouTube, but YouTube's not going to use me. I'm going to make sure I own an audience outside of YouTube and every other social media platform. And to this day, I do. I did a whole episode on this. If you didn't hear it, it was episode number, let's see if I can find it. I will find it, of course. Episode 2862, what I would do if all social media disappeared. I explain more of what I'm telling you right now in that episode. Now, again, our egos and greed lead us to ignore logical questions, but you got to be disciplined enough to stay away from the nonsense and not get caught up. Again, doesn't mean you can't step into the trap. You just got to know what you're trapping yourself into. I stepped into the YouTube trap knowing that I was stepping into the trap, but I was smart enough to not stay in the trap to where I had no other options. That's the only difference. Recapping today's class, which is how to avoid traps. Traps is a situation in which people, places, or things lie in wait to make a surprise attack. This is really about discipline. Point number one, beware of the free lunch. Remember, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So anytime somebody's offering you a free lunch, they're lying to you, lying by omission by not telling you what it's going to cost you to get that lunch. Your job is to figure out what it's going to cost you, whether they tell you or not. Number two, think about your exit strategy before you enter. Robert Greene talks about this, 48 Laws of Power, plan all the way to the end. Talks about it in the 33 strategies of war. You must know your exit strategy. It's easy to get into things. It's very hard to get out of them. And number three, ask yourself how much whoever is making the offer to you is benefiting versus how much you would benefit. And do you consider it a fair deal? And again, fair does not mean equal. Fair just means, does it make sense given who you are and given who they are? And if it does make sense, go ahead and get into it. Just know what you're getting into. And if it doesn't make sense, walk away. All right, you got to be disciplined enough to do that. All that said, everybody, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to learn how to build your business in a way that you don't need a social media platform, but you can use them to help your business rather than them owning you and owning your business. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Have me as your direct coach. Let's make sure your mind is in the right place and understanding how this needs to be gone about. Put the proper strategy together with my direct help. Systematize everything so we can make the same things work over and over again consistently and predictably, and make sure everything gets implemented, because the true test of your stuff being good is that it gets implemented and it produces measurable, tangible results. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Let's get to work on that. Work on your game. Dre all